Levy. He's ranking member on the Economic Committee of Parliament and the MP for Ofasia Yerebi. He's joined us on the line. Honorable, you're welcome to Eyewitness News. Now, the House of Parliament has approved it. It is law. The government has suspended it for a while. Today, it takes effect. You are still sticking by your position that it shouldn't have become a law at all in the first place, and that this levy should not have gone to Ghanaians.
Yes, we continue to, and a good evening to you and to your listeners. We continue to encourage the government to drop this levy. And the reasons that we gave several weeks ago when they first smuggled it through, which reasons they dismissed, are gradually bearing themselves out. You will recall that the government told us that the introduction of this levy will not lead to an increase in fuel prices. In fact, the energy minister is on record on the floor of Parliament, going at length explaining that it takes only a smart, innovative government to introduce a levy that will not increase prices at the pumps. And you recall that we drew their attention that their math was bad, and that if you introduce this 8% levy, prices could go up by average about 8%. And today, even after they suspended it a number of times, you are beginning to observe that as they are introducing the levy, fuel prices are going to go up by that 8% that we mentioned. We also then drew their attention to the fact that this is a time when, because of our collective efforts, the Ghanaians should be enjoying a lot more relief because of the appreciation of the Ghana cedi. So it is unfair to the people of Ghana that at this time, when Ghanaians should be enjoying relief, the government claws back a bit of that relief by introducing this levy. Number three, we drew their attention to the fact that the rate was quite exorbitant. Even some of the other levies that they themselves had criticized were somewhere around 1%. This is 8%. And number four, we mentioned the fact that you do not have control over fuel prices. Anything can happen to cause a further escalation. And when that escalation comes, it will further compound the cost of fuel, the cost of transportation, and then gradually the general cost of living. Those reasons that were outlined are now beginning to bear themselves out, and that's why we continue to encourage the government to drop this levy.
Okay, but something must give, and that 1 cedi is what has to give for the reprieve that we need as a nation. That's the argument of the government.
That argument, again, has been proven to be false. You recall that initially the government said that there was a debt that they needed to go and pay. Later, they then came around and admitted that essentially what they are doing is that they are looking for money to buy fuel to fire up the plants. And we have said that what must give is a renegotiation of the PPAs that caused the government to have to buy fuel apart from the tariffs. You can renegotiate those PPAs and require the power producer to buy his own fuel and factor it into the power purchase agreement. If you put the fuel outside, it's like an off-book transaction. That is when you would now have to require the finance minister to write a check for you to buy fuel. And that is why we encourage them to renegotiate. A couple of weeks ago, the Minister for Energy came to Parliament and admitted that he was then going to pay more attention to the renegotiation on the floor of Parliament, on record. So if you are going to renegotiate, which is what you should do, then why do you still need the levy? So nothing has to give apart from the renegotiation at this point in time. Additionally, Sandra, we have mentioned as a caucus that if you look at the levies on fuel now, it's edging to about 25 to 30% of the cost of fuel. Some of these levies have outlived their usefulness. Very soon, the minority will come out with a full policy document that shows the various levies that have outlived their usefulness. We encourage the government to do the analysis. It doesn't appear they have done it. We have done it, and we'll share it with the government and the people of Ghana that there are too many levies on fuel. Now is the time for these levies to be removed and not to be increased.
Before you go, because we are talking about fuel, yesterday the president announced that he's cancelling fuel or free fuel for officials, government officials. You have served in government before, and you do know the importance of these provisions for government appointees. How, I don't know, in your estimation, should we marry that essential duties of a public officer versus the cost saving that the government claims it is doing? Would you have advised this should happen?
Sometimes I get disappointed at how we swallow everything the government throws without interrogating it a bit more. If I saw what the government put out, they said we're going to cancel fuel allowance. Was that what they said?
Yes, that's what they said.
So I think the first question must be, who actually gets fuel allowance as a government appointee? And you, our colleagues as journalists, you can check that. It doesn't need to be an MPP NDC matter. You can check that from the paymaster to find out whether or not government officials, ministers, for example, get fuel allowance. It's a matter that you can check. Then you come to the question of, so if people don't get a fuel allowance, what are they supposedly removing?
One of the ways to check, Honorable, is to ask someone who has once been a minister of state to ask, how does this thing work?
So happening when we do that is that it becomes, you see, what ends up happening is that it becomes an MPP NDC matter. I want you to check for yourself, as a matter of fact. Is it true that ministers, for example, get fuel allowance? If it is not true, then what is the government saying they are removing? Another question, is it true that official government vehicles are fueled by government, just like how official vehicles of any entity are fueled by that entity? If that is true, then this new policy that they are introducing, are they saying that they are cancelling that? Or in essence, what is going to happen is that there are no fuel allowances, but they throw a kite in the air and people will believe it and clap that, oh, they've removed fuel allowance, when in reality what exists is that official vehicles are fueled by the owning entity, and that will still remain. It will not be cancelled. I think that some more, interrogation needs to be done of some of these things that are known, and then it doesn't become an MPP NDC matter. I don't want to be drawn into it. I think what the government has been announcing should be properly interrogated.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you to go into MPP NDC, but I just want to ask information. When you were once Minister for Information, who were the government officials that were qualified to be given fuel by the state? Was it all ministers? Was it staffers? Was it DCs? How did this work in the past?
I was a member of parliament / minister of state. When you're a member of parliament / minister of state, you don't get paid in the Akufo-Addo administration. You don't get paid 1 Ghana cedi extra apart from your parliamentary salary. You fuel your own vehicle. You don't get paid even a salary or an allowance. You fuel your own vehicle. You rely on your parliamentary salary. That was the rule in the Akufo-Addo tenure. If during another dispensation, somebody says there's some allowance that needs to be cancelled, I think that person should be asked to provide some further and better particulars on what they are talking about. What I can speak about as an MP minister in the Akufo-Addo era, I lived in my own house. I used my own vehicle. I bought my own fuel. I wasn't entitled even to 1 Ghana cedi extra as a minister of state. It was not like the previous administration where ministers were paid as ministers of state and then also took salaries as members of parliament. That's what led to what they call the double salary saga. On our watch, that didn't happen. So if on the watch of this administration, they say there's a fuel allowance that has to be removed, I think that you, our colleagues in journalism and in civil society, should interrogate it some more.
Okay, just one more question for education purposes. I am not familiar with how the Jubilee House operates, but I do know that when I'm entering the castle, which used to be the seat of government, there's a fuel station on the left. I've been told that's where government vehicles go to load up. So who are some of the people who go to load up fuel there for free then, if it is not ministers of state?
I wouldn't know that. I never used that. I didn't work from the Jubilee House. I worked from the Ministry of Information. Later, worked at the Ministry of Works and Housing. I never used any of those facilities. I don't know the people who are qualified to use that facility.
All right, thank you. Well, indulge me one more. I noticed you've brought a private member's bill to Parliament, and you are saying that there should be some amendment to the Public Financial Management Act. Please share with us what are you proposing?
That one I'm very happy to speak about. Today, if you
I
look
gave
at
you
the
one, so you
Public
give me one. It's fair.
Today, if you look at the Public Financial Management Act, there's a gap in the law. If you look at the legal architecture of the management of public funds, Article 36(5) requires anybody who has been elected as president to cause to be drafted what you call the Coordinated Policy of Social and Economic Program. So that's the 4-year medium-term program drawn out of your manifesto. The NDPC Act, the Planning Systems Act 4, 80 requires every ministry, department, and agency to have a strategic plan, which is connected to the national plan. And then if you look at the legislative instrument on planning, it requires your strategic plans to be certified. And then the PFM, the architecture of the PFM essentially is that when your plan is connected to the national plan, we can give you money to execute it. Today we have ministries, departments, and agencies that do not have plans that are certified by NDPC. The boards and sometimes the ministers and the CEOs have their own vision of something they want to do. Some want to build new headquarters, some want to do something else. But it is not something that the National Development Plan is sanctioning. But it's still a use of public funds, and they still get money from the finance minister, or sometimes they use IGF to pursue this. The private members bill that I have submitted to the Speaker essentially seeks to, one, bar the finance minister from funding any ministry, department, or agency that has not certified their plans but wants money to go and spend on their own. Two, bars the heads of institutions from using IGF if their plan is not certified by NDPC. The certification of the plan is the stamp of authority that connects whatever thing you want to do at your ministry, department, or agency to the national development agenda. Else, one of the gaps we have is that people spend money on other things that don't conform to where the country wants to go. And so this private members bill that I've submitted seeks to block that loophole and protect the public purse. If you're going to spend money, it must be money that is connected to a program which is locked into the National Development Plan. If not, it will be an offense to give you money or for you to spend money.
Has it been admitted, or you are still planning to table it?
No, so I have now submitted it to the Office of the Speaker through the Clerk of Parliament. They will then minute it and then send it to what we call the Committee on Private Members Bill, which committee will invite myself and those who are supporting me on the bill to make a representation. And then once it clears their committee, once that committee report is ready, then I'll be allowed to lay it on the floor of Parliament. So now it's not only government that can lay bills. I would then, as a private member, be allowed to lay it, have it debated, voted upon, and if Parliament accepts it, it becomes law, and the President will have to assent to it for it to amend the Public Financial Management Act. I believe in all humility that it is one of the ways by which we can tighten some of the loopholes that we have around us.
I know one of the key thresholds that you have to meet in laying a private member's bill to make sure that it will not be a cost to the state, or the state will not incur costs with the passage of that law. Based on what you are planning to do, which is to tweak what the law currently is on financial management, do you not think that there will be either a loss of money in one way or the other that the state would say amounts to a cost to the state, for which reason the Speaker or whoever is presiding may shoot you down?
To the contrary, I believe that it will rather save money in the public purse. It will rather retain money in the consolidated fund. This is not one of the bills that is asking government to spend money to do something, which would then be interpreted as, in the constitutional language, they say imposing a charge on the consolidated fund. This is a bill that rather seeks to keep money in the consolidated fund or preserve money in the consolidated fund until such a time that your plan is certified. And I'm hopeful that a purposive interpretation will be given to that question when it comes up, whether or not it will amount to a charge on the consolidation, on the consolidated fund.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, sir.
Chana, thank you so much.
That's Honorable Kojo Nkrumah. He is NPP Member of Parliament for Ofuasia Yerebi. He is also Ranking Member of the Economy Committee. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 City FM. Let's talk about